Persona!
You're mine.
Hell yeah! I love using the manifestation of society's demands on my personality to destroy arguably the core of a person's identity. I said what I said. We as viewers may get the idea from these games that Personas and Shadows are antagonistic forces. Shadows are the enemies that run wild within the collective unconscious of the world, a separate realm that exists parallel to ours and is influenced by the thoughts and feelings of the humans in our world. Only those with the powers of a persona can survive this realm and destroy the shadows within. I understand that was a very quick summary of the world of Persona that has more than a couple details missing, but what we're concerned with is the initial presentation of Personas and Shadows as being enemies, when they are actually meant to be a part of the same identity. You see, it's no secret that the Persona series incorporates concepts from Jungian Psychology, one of the earliest theories in psychology. The two concepts we're focusing on are the persona and the shadow, concepts that were cleverly integrated into a unique and engaging narrative, with a cast of relatable characters that help to explore the relationship between persona and shadow. But before we can understand this relationship, we must understand what both of these concepts mean individually, starting with the more recognizable term, persona! Most people who are familiar with the game will recognize Personas as the badass spirits our protagonists summon to destroy the enemy monsters known as the Shadows. Although this paints the image of Personas being the ultimate strength, Personas are merely one facet of our identity. In Jungian psychology, Personas are the side of our personality that we show to the world. It is entirely influenced by our society and what it demands of us. As much as we'd like to believe that we are entirely true to ourselves, the actual truth is that we alter our behavior depending on the circumstances we're in. It is a mask that we wear, if you will. For example, you act incredibly different at work compared to the way you act when you're with your friends. Sometimes it's almost as if you're entirely two different people, especially in the customer service industry. Shout out to anyone working in customer service. I truly appreciate the levels of patience you show to us plebs. This would be considered as one of your personas, a shift in your behavior to reflect and accommodate to the demands of the scenario you're in, to the demands of society. You can think of all of us being like Joker, swapping among the different masks or personas that we all develop to interact with the world. Similar to how in the game, different personas offer different advantages depending on the battle, in our world, different personas offer us different social advantages. The customer service persona we mentioned earlier gives you the advantage of people liking you, thus making it more likely for people to be satisfied with your service, and thus ensuring your ultimate goal, your next paycheck. You may even use different personas for interacting with specific people. Like how in order to meet the strict expectations of a family member, you choose to present yourself as a very respectful and diligent student around them, but you would never show them the rebellious nature that you hold within. This offers the advantage of maintaining your relationship to the person without any unnecessary conflict. Personas are used by everyone to some extent. It helps us maneuver through our social world, but it does not encompass our true identity. It is merely a fraction of it that we decide to be appropriate for the world to see, while keeping the rest hidden. They are the facade used to face life's hardships. So think less glorious monster slayer and more personality filter. The Shadow, on the other hand, is incredibly similar to its video game counterpart. It is far more personal and intimidating to the average human. The shadow is meant to hold all of the undesirable aspects of our personality and identity that we choose to ignore. We do so for any number of reasons. Maybe these thoughts are too embarrassing for us to admit to ourselves. Maybe they go against what society has taught us to be normal. Maybe they go against your family tradition. Or maybe it is just too painful to recognize them as parts of our identity. Despite these aspects being too undesirable for us to admit, they are still a part of our identity, the part that we have a hard time sharing with anyone. The true self. When we don't acknowledge or attempt to understand the shadow, we continue to let its influence on us grow stronger. The shadows within Persona 4 are the perfect examples of this concept. Within Persona 4, there is a separate world in which shadows and personas exist. When a human enters this world, they are confronted with another being that looks exactly like them, with the exception of the golden eyes. This is literally called the shadow of the person. In this world, the shadow confronts the human and outright tells them all of the deepest and darkest aspects of their personality, things that the human actively avoids acknowledging. The more the person refuses to accept their shadow, the stronger it becomes, to the point where it eventually consumes the human. This is a great representation of the relationship we have with our shadows. There are aspects about ourselves that we don't want to admit exist, but continue to be a part of us nonetheless. Things like desires to not feel chained by the demands of the family that loves you.
I never asked to be born here. Everything's decided for me, from how I live to where I die. I have no hope if I stay, and no courage to leave.
Stop. Please stop.
Or feeling so inferior to others that you need a friend who depends on you to make up for that.
I can't win as a girl, let alone as a person. I'm pathetic. But Yukiko, she depends on me. That's why she's my friend. No, this isn't me!
Or frustrations with the life around you, including your family and home.
It's so sad. I feel so sorry for myself. Boo-hoo! Actually, I'm the one who thinks everything's a pain in the ass. That's not true. Stop! Stop it!
Or confusion over your masculinity and sexuality.
You like to sew? What a queer! But you're a guy! Why aren't you manly? What does it mean to be a guy? What does it mean to be manly? Hell with that! What makes you think you can say that shit with my face?
Or desires to drop an identity at the cost of everyone's approval to show the world your real personality.
Look at the girl right in front of you! Not Rosette, the fake celebrity. I'm sick of being some airhead cliche who chokes down everything she's fed and takes it all with a smile!
That's not.
Or hatred for being born a girl because the world doesn't take your work in law enforcement seriously.
How could you become an ideal man when you were never male to begin with? No matter how many crimes you solve, you're a child in their eyes. You haven't the means to deal with society's two-faced nature.
That's not true!
Or confusion over your identity and purpose for even existing.
What sense is there in yearning for truth? Close your eyes, lie to yourself, live in blissful ignorance. It is a much smarter way to exist.
What are you talking about?
Or a great fear of being left behind by the people you love.
I was afraid of a future without my friends, afraid of leaving everyone behind and moving forward on my own. I don't want to be alone again. You're right.
If left unchecked, these thoughts continue to consume us as we either try to compensate for them or find ways to lie to ourselves, both of which only serve to increase the influence the shadow has on a person. By accepting the shadow, a person is able to recognize how their behaviors and actions are motivated by them, how we may be compensating for things we aren't even fully aware of or understand, because we refuse to give ourselves the opportunity to explore those thoughts. Both the persona and the shadow are important aspects of our identity. One cannot have more influence over our identity. Overly relying on our personas leaves us blind to our sense of individuality, constantly shifting between different masks to meet society's needs while never acknowledging our own. However, ignoring the necessity of personas and living to satisfy the shadow is to ignore the necessity of being a part of society. Both of these concepts are integral to our identity. The way we choose to present ourselves allows us to interact with the world around us, but we cannot lose our sense of individuality. The thoughts and feelings we suppress for whatever those reasons may be are still genuine aspects of ourselves that one way or another become reflected in our behaviors. It's why in Persona 4, understanding the existence of the shadow grants the person the power of their persona. It's why in Persona 5, taking off the mask of the persona summons the power that reflects their true individuality, and not what society has placed on them. By acknowledging our shadow, we gain an understanding of who we are and why we are motivated to do the things that we do, which in turn helps us better use our personas to interact with the world without the need to present a false self, staying true to your individuality, which is one of the many messages behind
Persona!
Thank you so much for watching. I've been dying to talk about the Persona series, and Joker being included in Smash was the perfect opportunity. There's so much detail to the characters and the antagonist and the story itself that it would all definitely merit their individual analysis. So maybe we'll return to this series. If you want to be notified about that, or just have an interest in whatever else I may talk about, then please subscribe and hit the bell icon. And as always, my people, thank you for watching.